Welcome back to There's Layers to This. We are doing an episode on community. Why? Because community is one of the most important things in every human life. Anyways, I'll talk more about that as Faith brings us in. You guys are all going to get a chance to hear for yourselves what we think community is. Once again, like, share, subscribe, and just hit the post notification. And also, make sure you comment and let us know what else you want us to cover. I'll talk more about this at the end, but let's get into it. Take it away.
Welcome all, whatever time it is that you're listening, whatever time it is that you're watching, to another episode of There's Layers to This.
Woo!
You are with me, Faith-Rose, and...
Dumi! Yes, Lord. Yeah, that's all y'all getting. If you want to hear my full name, go back to season 1.
Wow. People are going to have to go to season 1 for a lot of things. Yeah, right. So, And today, we're talking about community.
Yes, we are.
But before we talk about it, I just wanted to show, because I think in the last episode, we're talking about full circle. So I think it probably will come in again at some point anyway.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to show the actual book. So this is the book in its full glory.
It's a full circle.
It's a full circle. And this is the album that comes with it. And together we have the Full Circle Experience.
Hey, faithful president. Yes.
Okay, let's get into it. So community, Dumi, take it away.
Yeah, man. Like over the last few weeks and over the last month or so, we have seen people come together in a way that I didn't think was actually possible. Like, with nobody having to go to work. If you have one of those jobs where you can work from home, you're pretty much gonna have to stay at home during quarantine. But yeah, it's crazy. It's amazing to see how much people need each other now. Like, I live about a 40-minute journey out of Nottingham, and even here in my community, I'm seeing like people getting up and going to see their neighbors, people I never see them talk to, and they're going up and talking to their neighbors, or when people clapping for the NHS and for the first what is it, first line,
front line.
Frontline, yeah. Oh my gosh, my English is bad right now. Anyways, yeah. The frontline individuals who are, keeping us safe and making sure that, trying their best to help with the efforts to reduce the number of people ill with coronavirus. It's a big thing. Like, to see communities come out. I have seen my neighbor more in the last month than I have in the last year, which is crazy. I
think we've been forced to slow down and look at what's important, and I think the people who are around you are very important.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we need to understand as well is community is much further and much bigger than we might think, and so that the first question is always, what is community? And community is just, I believe, is just a group of people with a common interest, or the place that you live and the vicinity that you're in and the people that are related to you in that vicinity, whether relationship through this person is my neighbor or their friends or their family, that person is part of your community, and community extends to even the people that share the same views as you. But,
and I think building on that, community, I guess, would be people that you commune with. So looking at that aspect of things, it shows the importance for that connection. And also it shows the importance to make the effort for that connection in order to strengthen that community.
Yeah, so here it says, on Google that a group of people living in the same place or having a particular characteristic in common. So whether it be your views or your ideas or your, I don't know, just whatever it is that makes you guys commonplace and whatever makes you close to someone, or share something with someone, that is community. And we're living in a world now that is completely, well, almost completely globalized. So our communities have definitely expanded beyond the reach of just my neighbor, or beyond the reach of my neighborhood or my city that I live in. Now we have online communities. We have, families and other people are able to connect, via, technology, cell phones, laptops. I mean, right now we're holding this podcast on Zoom, and our communities are being served by having, this common place to be able to share things online. I say, my question is to you, Faith. Like, so why is it so important as human beings for us to have community? Yes, we're social beings, but why is it so important for us to feel accepted and feel like we need people who share our views and share a space with us?
Well, you just said what I was about to say. We're inherently social beings. So that's why even when we look at the harshest punishment you can ever give someone is solitary confinement.
Yeah.
Because it's what we feed off, it's what we live off, because everyone wants to be connected to someone, to something, to belong to something. And, it all just goes back to, what is important to you. Because people have all got something that is important to them. I think that's the crux of what community is about. When we're talking about online communities, when we're talking about communities in all these different spaces and things like that, what we're looking at is what is the common thing, what is the common place. And, there's always something that we can commune about. I think that's what is the lifeblood of different movements and things like that. But I think that, community is important, yes, because we are social beings, but because we live on connection, we thrive from connection. And I guess someone was saying the ultimate goal is to love and to be loved. Inherently, we need love. Everyone needs love. And I think love is found in community, because in community, there is that sense of saying, okay, I see you. Yeah. Because we live lives, and the way we have been living our lives up until the time when we were forced to be in our homes and actually have a look and see, this is my neighbor kind of thing. We live lives where we are constantly just like running. We're running on empty a lot of the time, because we're not focusing on those things that are important, because we say, okay, we take those things for granted, and we do tend to take things for granted. And if we're looking at saying, okay, why community is so important, is because, we need that love, we need that connection, and having that common cause allows us to have that. So that's why I would say community is important, because it thrives off love, and it just makes the world go around. People are saying, okay, there's still hope left in humanity and that sort of thing, because love is the principal thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, over the last couple of weeks, last week we had, not last week, 2 weeks ago, we had the issue with George Floyd, and George Floyd, spilled over into last week, and we've seen all the comments and all the things that have happened, and, definitely the people most affected are, communities of people of color. And, the issue of privilege is something that everyone shares. And I know we covered, mainly the whole systemic racism and so on last week. But I think when we look at things from the perspective, from the lens of, how community can change, lives, how community can come together and just make life better for everyone. You look at the whole situation with the riots. Would we say that it's a toxic community if people are so hurt that they're causing issues and causing pain?
I mean, well, what are we looking at? Because we're saying, okay, why is community important? And I said, well, because we thrive off love, and communities, people are communing and people are coming together on a common cause. So it's not necessarily. So I guess maybe is it the love for the people of color who have been
taken.
Yeah, who have been taken, and however else you'd like to look at it, but then we're saying, okay, if we're looking at it from that perspective, are we looking at love and what love can do? Because love is a very strong emotion.
Yeah.
So what are the extents that we go to for the reasons of love?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why in the last episode I was talking about the importance of the process. How are we processing these things? Because what do we want on the end of it? Because I always believe when we're communicating or when we are, whatever we are doing, we always have to think with the intention of what do I want to get out of this at the end of it?
Yeah.
Because it's not, what I'll do now, it feels good. I'm in pain. So this feels good. This feels right. And I'm going to just do this. Because right now I'm angry and you need to understand that. Yes, I understand your anger, but in the grand scheme of things, is that going to, how is that going to pan out? So, I know you were talking about the toxic community, but I think within every community, there's different characters, and I'm sure there are voices of reason. And I think it's really important to engage those who probably may be looked at as the more level-headed ones.
Yeah.
To say, okay, well, what are we really trying to achieve?
Mm-hmm.
We understand Black Lives Matter. I agree, Black Lives Matter. But at the same time, what are we doing? Because I know on social media, we've been saying, okay, what we've been seeing all around to say that it's not enough just to post these things. What else are you doing?
Yeah.
And I think, having those conversations within your communities is very important to say, okay, what do we want? Because if we thrive off love, and if love is what we're trying to get at the end of the day, then what are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
What are we doing? It was Africa Day just last week.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the theme for this year is something around gun violence or something like that. I don't know. I've forgotten the exact theme. I'll look it up. Let me just look it up and then I'll let you know.
Yeah, in this community that we live in, there's a lot of issues. There's a lot of issues anywhere in the world, and we need you guys as listeners and as viewers to really understand that we are not condemning the people. We're condemning the action of causing pain and looting and violence and all the things that come with people who are hurting others. We are saying that there is definitely always a better way. And Superman himself says it. There's always another way. There always is another way. And the truth is we need to be able to see that other way. I know and I understand. I'm a Black person myself. Faith is a Black person myself. We are individuals from this community and we understand what it's like to feel racism. We understand what it's like to be in a world where that is a problem. So I just hope that as people will all understand that, yes, there is pain and we've lost someone who was instrumental in his community. Now, the idea is, how do we fill his shoes? And how do we make that death count? How do we make that person's death not to have died in vain, but to change the narrative to that of how can we get people in our community to be more effective? I think that's the thing that we should be talking about.
Yeah, so going back to my point, what I was saying about Africa Day, the theme this year was silencing the guns, creating conducive conditions for Africa's development and intensifying the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah.
And, maybe there could be some parallels that could be drawn here. So if we're talking about silencing the guns, we could look at whatever, at the violence and other things that are going on. And I remember I was watching a particular lecture, and I caught the tail end of one other lady who was talking. And basically what she was saying is, okay, we can put all these measures into place. We can, go around communities, get rid of all the guns, do all of that, do this, do that. But what we really, really need to do is to make sure that we have communities that understand what community is about. As Africans, we are inherently community-based people. I always love, and I always say this, I believe in Ubuntu, I am because you are. And inherently, that's how I look at it, because I am my brother's keeper. I need to do everything to make sure that, my community is doing better. And I think sometimes if we are so transfixed by our emotions and we're making emotional decisions, that is when we do things where we'll probably be like, okay, maybe if I'd done this in a different way, I'd have got a better outcome. But at the end of the day, in the same vein, it's important to really understand the hurt that the community is feeling and not dismiss that. Yeah. So let's not dismiss that, but let's say, okay, how are we processing it and how could we be better? Because at the end of the day, it's not a case of saying, okay, I'm angry and that's all that matters. I've been angry before, you've been angry before, but I'm not trying to dumb down. I'm not trying to water down other people's experiences, because people are hurting. Yeah. But what are we doing? What else are we doing?
Yeah.
So I think it's a call. I mean, we've come back to this because this is a very topical issue, but it's a call to really get back to the place of saying, okay, let's get back to what matters.
Yeah.
I think one of the key issues a lot of the times with the Black community is that we do tend to live in quite a fragmented way. And that's problematic, simply because of the fact that if we are so fragmented, when something happens, how do we respond? Because we need to be able to respond as a community and not as individuals.
Yeah.
And one of the things that a lot of the times happens within the Black community as well is like, people will be tearing each other down and saying, okay, that's not how you should do it.
Crabs in a barrel.
Like how do we respond? Are we responding with love? If we're talking about community, what is community really about? If it's about coming together, it means taking into account the understanding that maybe this person might not understand this at this level. So instead of shooting them down to say, okay, how do we work together so that you get to the understanding of, okay, this is what we're trying to do and this is where we're going, you know, and let's do it together. Yeah.
In one of Kanye West's songs, his most recent album, the church, what is it called? Sunday Service. I don't remember what the name of the album is, but I think it's something to do with Sunday Service. But basically, he talks about, he says, I came to the church, but nobody loved me. He felt like the Christians were going to accept him, for converting and becoming a person who believes in Jesus Christ. But then instead of that, they judged him for his past life. And then he said that it made him to feel like nobody loves him. That's being a Christian myself, it makes me look at myself like, okay, first of all, where I've come from, like, I should have nothing to say on someone's past, if I've been forgiven for mine. And as a community, I believe it's very, very important. And communities all over the world, whether it's, the Black Lives Matter movement and the community there, or whether it be church communities, because church communities are very, very important for the stability of, most people, whether it be people who work in law enforcement, and that's a community in itself. we need to understand as people that, like we do not have the right, to judge each other as a community. And I think that's very, very important. And I'm going to touch now on how community functions. A successful community is always ready to support each other in things that will uplift the entire community, things that will uplift that person and uplift the entire community. And what people need to understand is that, like, in a legal sense, that thing must uplift the community without ending lives, without taking something away from someone else. It has to be legal, and someone has to benefit, from what another person is doing. And a community, it's almost like a communist manifesto. Like, if you make money, I make money, But that's the whole idea of community, is that everyone has to be elevated by the thing that we're doing. But even if you're not being elevated, if the thing that you're doing is good and it looks, and it helps other people to be inspired, then it's our job as a community to support that person. And I remember you just talked about how, as Black people, a lot of us tend to have that crabs in the barrel mentality. Say that, okay, this is something that I wouldn't say struggling with, but we say that the crabs in the barrel mentality makes us to be weak, because we don't support each other when we really need it. And so someone builds something on their own, but is never able to sustain it. And so generational wealth is not built. And then we're not able to build better, communities, better houses, better facilities, better things that we need to be, in a better place. And I think that's important. We need to support each other, and that's how community functions. But from your perspective, how do you feel that community can, push itself up? How do you feel it's supposed to function?
I mean, everything that you've said, you've not said anything new. That's stuff that we all know. And one of the things that came to mind was a quote by Bruce Lee. I believe it's by Bruce Lee. But it says, knowing is not enough, we must apply. Yes. Willing is not enough, we must do. So we then, I think, just building on from what you've said, because I don't see any reason in going back and repeating what you've just said. If we're looking at our application, I think there's a lot to be said about actually reflection.
Yeah.
We need to take our time. We've had an opportunity to have a chance to reflect on our lives. Some people have lost their jobs. Some people are going to a job that will not be functioning the same way that it was before. And what are they now doing? They're needing to find new ways of doing things. Some people are reevaluating and saying, do I really want to go back to that job? So maybe some people have voluntarily left their jobs because we've had an opportunity to reflect and say, is this working? So we know a lot of the times our communities aren't working in the way that they should. Mm-hmm. So have we sat down? Have we reflected and said, okay, what do we need to do? So it says we must apply. We must apply knowledge. If we're applying knowledge, we say, okay, well, this is the issue. So let's do this. And, it says willing is not enough. We must do. So I think, everyone knows what they should be doing, but whether people are doing stuff is a whole nother ballgame. So in terms of the function of a community, I don't believe a community should be likened into perfection. And I just want to go back to a couple of points that you made when you spoke of the church and everything. You spoke of Kanye West's song. So when you're talking about the church, we understand the church in I think a lot of times the way people look at the church is in a very myopic sense. They look at church in a very one-sided way. Mm-hmm. Let's not forget the church's responsibility, right? If we're saying a lot of people are depending on the church, then what is the church's responsibility? Why are people dependent on the church? Maybe because with Christianity, there is that opportunity for people to really come and find someone to say, okay, look, this burden is too heavy. Let me hand it over to someone who will be able to do something about it. Yeah. So then maybe that's the view that we have of the church. And we say that because I'm handing over my burden, it's going to be easy and I'll be able to get through everything.
Yeah.
But let's not forget that the church is just a building. The people are just people who are there, who are serving, and they're meant to be serving the community. But then they're not always going to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So with that in mind, we have to understand that we are dealing with human beings who are human in the very same way that we are. So they will make mistakes. So I believe that when we are thinking about the church, we also have to look at the church from the perspective of saying, okay, they are humans there who may make mistakes, who might not do things in the way that I would have expected, because what they say, I don't know who said it, but it says expectation is the thief of all joy.
Mm-hmm.
If we are expecting things from other people and we're putting people at such a high level, then we will obviously be disappointed. When we're looking at it from the perspective of Christianity, and maybe let's talk of the church, when we're looking at the perspective of Christianity, it's God who we're looking to. It's Jesus who we're looking to. He's the one who grounds us. He's the one who gives us, it's God who gives us the peace that passes all understanding, that in the face of things that might otherwise shake other people, we are still okay through that. So it's looking at it and having that understanding, having the right perspective when we're looking at that.
Yeah.
Saying that, I'm not saying that I'm not trying to say, okay, yeah, the church is fine, it's full of human people and, people will make mistakes. The church, for a lot of things, might not have responded in the way that the whole church should have responded. And I'm speaking of the church as a whole. Because if the church is the glue for a community, because that's where you go to, like, when things get tough and you're saying, okay, God, I need you at this point. I can't do it anymore. Has the church always been active in the community?
Exactly. That's a serious question.
Has the church failed the community? A lot of the times I would say yes. Because, when Jesus was talking, he was saying, okay, when I was hungry, did you give me food?
No.
So there's all of those things, like people are hungry. But what's the point in saying, let me pray for you? I need food. Am I going to eat your prayers? I'm sick. Are you coming to see me? It's looking at those things and saying, okay, well, what are we doing?
I love that. Am I going to eat your prayers?
Yeah. Like, what are we really doing? We're saying, oh, yes, I'm willing to help. But what are you actually doing to help? Yeah. You say, I know that there's a problem, but how are we applying that knowledge?
Yeah.
So community is so much more than knowing its function. Everyone knows its function because everyone is part of some sort of a community. It's only in very few isolated incidences where people are just by themselves. And what the issue is we have very fragmented communities. So that's what can disturb and distort some of the things that are going on within our own communities. So how do we strengthen our communities? And how, because I'm looking at it being progressive, how do we strengthen our communities and how do we move on? We have conversations.
Yeah.
We start conversations, and it's not conversations of how was the weather? It's not conversations of where are you planning on going on holiday next? But it's conversation about things that happen, things that matter.
Yeah.
What matters right now in this world is the fact that the world has changed. We're not going back to normal. The world has changed. So what are we doing about it? How are we preparing for the next stage of our existence? How are we preparing for what's to come? We don't know what's going to be here at the end of 2020.
Yeah.
They said, okay, maybe the death rate has gone down, but maybe there'll be more infections and things like that. So they might not even get rid of it. At this point, there's still no vaccine.
Yeah.
So, there's all of these things. So social distancing, I guess, will be a norm because we're saying, okay, well, we have to get back to to a world that is functioning, be it in a different way to before. But, the economy needs to get moving.
Yeah. I'm just going to
pause. And we're all contributing to the economy. So what are we doing? Am I still spending all my days building someone else's dream?
Yeah.
Or am I taking steps to work on my own dream? Because we all have dreams. We all have things of saying what we want to be better. The next rapper that you hear of, or whoever, maybe a lot of people say, oh yeah, when I am famous, when I've done this, I want to buy my mom a car. I want to buy my mom a house. You're not the first person to have that idea. People have that idea, but for you to be able to get there, it's important to work on yourself.
Yeah.
Because you're part of that community. So essentially, you're part of that problem.
Essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, working in a world where the community is constantly under attack because of the various things that we put ahead of, our own fellow people, it makes it more difficult for us to be able to see a clear path to success as a whole community. But I think that's why conversations like this are very important. And I like how you've spoken about the importance of understanding, the responsibility of people, but also understanding that they're human. But at the same time, taking responsibility for that. And that's a very powerful thing. It's very difficult to live past. I mean, okay, let's take it from the instance of the community you and I are trying to build. There's layers to this, and the community that you've built through Faith-Rose. And obviously the communities that I'm trying to cultivate in the producer world, that we can all work together and produce amazing music and amazing opportunities for others. Yeah, I've always found it powerful how we're able to come together and just from nowhere, ideas become reality. And I think that's I've gotten to experience the power of what a successful working community might look like. Because in the grand scheme of things, I know, for example, in your community, and you talk about this a lot in season 1 and, even at the beginning, and you covered it a little bit in episode 1 of this season, you talk about, just how it's like we have a conversation and then suddenly like you come to us with an idea, we're doing something. Yeah, we're doing something. And suddenly that thing becomes reality. And I believe community is a place where people are able to like dream freely and their dreams become reality through hard work, encouragement, and, facilitating. And you facilitated a lot of our dreams. Not a thing in my room have I had before you and I started working together. Not a thing in this studio have I had. Trust me. This is crazy, isn't it? This is really crazy. But that's the truth. Because I needed some people, and I still have other people in my life today who support that dream. I have my parents, I have friends, I have family, who support my dream. But it always starts with a person who is able to see more in you than you see in yourself. And I think the communities that you have created and we have created, and, I know the CIC Inc. family, CIC Inc., the guys blessed me with something I didn't expect. Until I saw it. I saw it and my dad came, did you order a screen, mate? I was like, I think so. I don't know. I might have done. But, being able to facilitate everyone's dream, that is a powerful part of, community's idea. The idea that everyone can get to a place where they're happy with what they're doing, with the support of the people around them. I feel like we've almost pretty much exhausted everything that we wanted to say on community because, like, I feel full.
Yeah, and you've said so many things in just that space of time, and yeah, like we don't. And I think one thing that I wanted to just say, we don't always know our impact.
Mm-hmm.
We don't always know our impact on others. So it's important that whoever we come into contact with, we treat them with love. We treat them with respect. We treat them with care, because you might be their introduction to love.
Mm-hmm.
For me, love is something that I have expected. Yeah, because that's the environment that I grew up in. Yeah, like if I just talk about my family, for example, I have, wherever I go within my family, my extended family, I'm greeted with love. Now, if I come to a place where that's not the case, then I don't know how to process that. I don't know how to handle that. And I'm just like, well, what's going on? Because this doesn't add up. And I find myself getting confused. And I really think in everything that you've said, it's so important that when we are approaching people, we do so with love. Because if we're looking at the beginning of what we just said, what community is, and what we need as human beings, it's love.
Yeah.
So we have a responsibility to look back and say, have we done well? What more could we be doing? And respond in love. Respond in love. And, all this that you're saying, okay, yeah, you're saying, okay, I've created this and created this community and stuff. Like, that wasn't, yeah. And I mean, like, I never did all of these things for the sense of saying, okay, well, yeah, when we've done this, like, I'll get all the accolades or whatever. Because for me, I think it's so important to see people for who they are and see people for the joy that they bring. See people, I remember there's one person who I've actually lost touch with right now. I remember I'd got off the plane and I looked at him and he had the biggest smile on his face. I said to him, I was just like, oh, what are you so happy about? And I was just like, oh, you're smiling a lot or something. He was like, yeah, that's all I have to give right now. Like, he'd just come into a country. He'd come for a performance, or he'd come for a performance of some sort. He was just a visiting person, and he was just like that, smiling. Like, usually when you come to a foreign land, you're probably like, okay, looking around. But then I think his whole demeanor and the warmth of it, like, made me warm towards him. And it was like, that's all I have to give right now. And like, a smile could be the first smile that someone has seen in a long time. And that is love. That's a universal language. And one other thing that I really loved about what you said is that, in community, when done right, people have the ability to dream. Yeah. They had the not ability, you said the freedom to dream. And that is so important because, in what you're saying, there's a lot that you have said that it's just like a reflection of what's going on in my mind. Because some of these things, maybe I might have said them to you, or maybe I didn't, but then it's so beautiful to see how these things are actually playing out. And I think it's important to acknowledge that and, look at the beauty of that, because the whole reason for Faith-Rose has got 3 pillars: identity, love, and freedom. And I remember saying to you guys right at the beginning in 2016 that it's about identity, it's about love, it's about freedom. Who you are, love who you are, and do what you want to do. Those are the 3 things that I said that we should all do. And there was no step-by-step thing to say, okay, now Dumi, you're ready. But I guess maybe through our conversations, you felt free enough to come up to me and be like, oh, Faith, I want to do this. And I'm like, okay, cool, right? You want to do it? How are you doing it? And I'm just there to ask the questions. I'm not there to tell you what to do. I'm there to ask the questions, and you give me the answers. I say, okay, let's do it. I'll support you. And I think there is so much. It's so important to have someone who sees the greatness in you. And one of the things that has just been playing in my mind over the past week is like, Jesus said to his disciples, who then became apostles, right? After he had gone, he said to them, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. So which means he saw the potential in them. Let's say so some of them were fishermen, right? So he told them, I can see you're fishermen, but I will make you fishers of men, because he could see the potential in that person. And I think communities have potential
Jesus
to come
had bars,
together,
man.
to be unified. Exactly.
Jesus had bars, man.
If you read all of this stuff, you're like, wow, did Jesus really say that? I mean, I could even say one other thing that I remember sitting down and I was reading through my Bible and I was just like, okay, what is this whole thing about? Because we're saying, okay, when we're talking about community from another perspective as well, we're saying, okay, what do communities live off? What do they breathe off? Like, they breathe off. It all comes back to love. But then let's look at what the Bible tells us. It says Jesus was moved by compassion, and then a miracle happens. Then it says Jesus was moved by compassion, and then he did something. Jesus was moved by compassion, and then something happened. So we need to show love. And we need to show compassion. And I think compassion and love, they're synonymous with each other, but they're also different. Because maybe if we're looking at compassion, maybe that's like empathy. That's going down the route of empathy, not sympathy.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference.
Yeah.
Not sympathy, but empathy. So I'm not going to tell you that I know what it feels like to be stopped and searched. Mm-hmm. That's sympathy. Yeah. Or maybe you put like, oh yeah, I know what it feels like to be stopped and searched, but that maybe will be someone, maybe, I don't know if that's sympathizing. I've never been stopped and searched. So what do I say which is different and which also acknowledges that it might have been different, that it might have been something I've never experienced. I could say, I can imagine it was an experience that made you feel vulnerable. Mm. Isn't that a more accurate depiction of maybe how you might have felt? Mm-hmm. Oh, if be like, oh, this happened, I'd be like, oh, well, that sucks.
That sucks. Man.
And, it's acknowledging what that person is feeling and not trying to say, okay, well, I'm going to piece everything that you're feeling into a nice little box, and I'm going to say that this is exactly what it is, because it's not. And I think communities have that common bond, but at the same time, communities are so much more richer because of the different people that are within that community. Yeah. And it's for us to embrace each other. It's for us to, speak to each other with love. It's for us to really grow together and really get to a point where we're saying, okay, you know what? I think there's more. There's more to this. Seeing the beauty in what people are saying, seeing the heart and not the action. Hmm. Because if we're looking at someone's heart, someone might have done it from a good heart, but they didn't understand what they were doing.
Yeah.
So are we just going to throw that person away because we're saying, oh, well, they haven't done things in the same way that I would have done them?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a powerful thing to say. I feel like I was educated and then I was like in a sermon for a second. Yeah. No. Seriously speaking, guys, for all of you guys who tend to, sit down and think when you have time, definitely check out these podcasts. Trust me. It's been a very, very, very long journey to where we are now. And there's a lot that we still have in store for you. And there's a lot that God has in store for us. What I want everyone to understand as well is just, there's layers to this. Was born from one conversation. One conversation had in 30 minutes became a whole podcast. And today we're having this conversation. And to be quite honest, it's pretty therapeutic because you think about things and you live life and you relive certain things that, you never thought you'd ever think about again. But one thing we want you guys to learn from this experience, and there's layers to this, is that life is progressive and that it's always moving. And whether you come from a community that's broken or not, it's up to us to make the original, to make the first step. It's up to every individual to take the first step on their own to make things better for their community.
Mm-hmm.
And we believe, as there's layers to this, that we want to have these conversations where people can be free to voice their opinions, but also be respectful of the person that might have a different point of view. We love to be able to facilitate these spaces where you guys can, talk about how you feel about certain things. I know the world right now is in a crazy place and we don't really understand what's going on. But all we can do is hope and pray that things will improve. But our
Can
job...
I just step in there? I always say this.
Go ahead.
I always say this, and I think I need to say it now. Hope is a very poor strategy.
I was on a roll, man.
I'm sorry. I just had to kill. I just had to kill that flow because hope is a poor strategy. But anyway, carry on. We can hope and pray.
Yeah, we can hope and pray that things change. But it's our responsibility to take the first step, make someone else's day better by just a smile, help someone in need. It's not about money. Sometimes it's just someone just needs a shoulder to cry on. Sometimes people just need someone to talk to. You never know, as Faith said, what impact you might have. That's it from me. So Faith, you're going to take us out just as you brought us in. And let's go.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting conversation. I didn't think it would take that turn that it did, but thank you, Dumi, for summarizing it so beautifully. And we all have a role to play. So let's continue playing that role and let's continue doing more for our community in striving to be better and doing better by others. Thank you and see you next time.
Right, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode on community. We hope that you were uplifted and also that you are able to see things from other people's perspectives and all the perspectives. But we want to know how you felt about the episode and what you thought, and we want to know your ideas and your perceptions and everything that you want to tell us about. Make sure you check us out on YouTube and SoundCloud. We hope you guys will enjoy using the YouTube, the SoundCloud, and we want to know how you feel about us being on YouTube now and also being on SoundCloud. Let us know also by catching us on our Instagram, which is live, and we want you to be able to access us. So there's our Instagram, our email, even our Facebook is live. So hopefully you guys will be able to voice your opinions and talk to us about the kind of stuff that you want to talk about. And we are excited to bring episode 3 next week, and we hope you enjoy your weekend and your next week. Anyways, that's from me, Dumi, from There's Layers to This, and the team. Once again, we are looking for more people to have these kinds of conversations with, so definitely write to us and text us and put it in the comments. Good night. God bless. Cue the music.